It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. We intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax, and enjoy the moment.
Good morning. I should be rocking back and forth because y'all, I saw Candyman. Did you get I don't know if you got the right alert because Streamlabs is perpetually just trying to play me, but it should have told you that we're talking about Candyman today. I hope so. Let me see. Let me do my mic check. Okay. Yeah. Good morning. Hi. My name is Mika Gadsden. I'm the host of Mic'd Up in the Morning with Mika Gadsden. What's up? Welcome back. Yo. So sometimes, right? So check it. Sometimes I know what I might touch on every day. Some days, good morning, Justin, Meg, D. Bartlett, Denise. Good morning. Some days I know what I'm going to talk about, either like generally, vaguely, or like really, when I really want to hit something out the park. Good. If I really want to hit something out the park, sometimes y'all, it's not even falling down a rabbit hole like, ooh, I found, but sometimes it's almost too much information, and that's the good problem I had this morning. So I went to go see Candyman last night. It was on a whim. I was going to talk about something completely different today, and I said, you know what? Ooh, let me go see Candyman. And so last week when I took my break, I visited my homie Amron. I stayed with her and her roommates in Brooklyn for most of my visit. Visit up north to the Northeast, and I never saw the original I never saw the original Candyman. I'm not a horror person. That ain't my jam. I got a black saved Christian mother who don't believe in none of that, Ouija boards and summoning nothing. So and plus I'm the girl that started crying watching Pee-wee's Great Adventure when the Large Marge, the truck driver, turned into a monster. I was traumatized for years. I couldn't watch Thriller until I was 13. That's me. I was really, really, really scaredy cat, all of that, right? So horror is not I like a good thriller, but horror, So I never saw Candyman. So what more perfect setting than with a current Pratt Institute student, someone who's studying city planning, someone who's helped study the city zoning and gentrification and redlining and TIFs. No one was a better person to sit and watch Candyman with other than my friend Amron Lee, right? And so we watched the original because I really did not know it offered so much social commentary. That's how much of a blind spot I had, right? And so it was great to watch that movie, and then in preparation to watch the new one, because I was interested in seeing the new movie, right? And so the new version, the remake. Shout out to Black director Nia DaCosta. Shout out Jordan Peele for being a producer on there and helping with the screenplay. I think they both co-wrote the screenplay. And so if you haven't seen the original Candyman, we're going to catch you up a little bit. Spoilers. But you know what? To me, it's not the kind of spoilers that is going to mess up your experience if you want to go out and see either the original or the new remake. It doesn't matter. I think that it's no secret what both movies attempt to cover. Now, I'm not giving you a review. I am not. This ain't no Siskel and Ebert. That's an old throwback. I ain't Rotten Tomatoes. Y'all, sometimes I'm like, reviews are just for people who just sometimes I love a good movie review when it really tells you what you're seeing. Shout out NPR. I think I listened to their pop culture happy hour podcast about the new remake and all that. Was a really good substantive conversation about both Candyman films, and focused heavily on the remake. But outside of that, I really don't look at reviews to really tell me. I like what I like. You like things, you like, you know, raunchy films or cult classics or campy films. You like it for whatever reason, right? And so that's how I would invite you to enjoy Candyman. Don't get wrapped up in the reviews, but it's been reviewed very well. And it's doing great at the box office, and that's the primary reason why I wanted to support the film. Is a black female director. It's a black movie about black shit. Takes place in Chicago. My brother's been telling me about Cabrini Green forever. I grew up watching Good Times. If you didn't know where Good Times was located or supposed to be located, it was in Cabrini Green. We're gonna get to that. So I was very interested in this movie. I say all that to say, let me switch up my view. Hey, what's up, Kia? You still on the West Coast? Let me switch up. Okay, here we go. I want to switch up, and we're gonna shout out to Courtney. I've been slacking in my pimping with this, and we're gonna get to everything in a second. But I want to make sure that I start off by telling you all before we jump into Candyman's message for Charleston. All right, I want to invite you all to please head to Courtney Hicks. Head to her Instagram page, look for this post regarding her efforts to support the population at Joseph Floyd Manor. This really coincides with, so I wanted to talk about this effort today. Like, that was going to happen. And then when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, Joseph Floyd Manor, high rise, low income housing, you know, marginalized community there, elderly folks, elderly black folk. You know, I'm like, oh wow, you know, Candyman, right? After seeing the original 1992 film. So I want to lift up Candyman. I want to lift up Courtney's efforts to support the folks living over there at Joseph Floyd Manor. You can read her caption here. She is trying to fill a gap that has been left wide open by the city, by our current political leadership. As you can see, her first sentence up top: the pandemic is far from over, and the blatant disregard of our governor, Henry McMaster. Shout out, is that somebody? Shout out, new follower. Oh, you back on it? Okay, good kid, good to see you. All right, good. What's that? Crazy Q-Main? Good morning. Thank you for following. All right. So she's talking about the blatant disregard by our elected officials, namely our governor and our mayor, puts immunocompromised and high-risk communities back in the direct line of risk. So the Joseph Floyd Manor has been, Joseph Floyd Manor care package project. Yeah, she put, let me see, the care package project has been sustaining the residents of Joseph Floyd Manor since July of 2020. I want to say this: Courtney has not stopped. Courtney has not stopped advocating for this community. Courtney has not stopped organizing. It hasn't been as large as the initial mutual aid effort that she launched on her iPhone, with the help of a Chris Kalin, with the help of Candace, who's not Candace Livingston, with the help of myself and countless other students from CFC and graduates from CFC. Like Courtney, she killed it last year. So she hasn't stopped. Even though the work has looked a little different, it really has stayed the same. It's just a smaller scale. Because y'all know how people don't give a fuck after a few months. You know how Charleston is. We don't really care about those poor black people. Somebody else will take care of it. But Courtney's been one of those people that has said, no, I'm committed to this population. She's even done COVID testing. She's led the effort to a whole COVID testing there. Courtney is asking for more help. And so please, so right here it says, thank you once again for your support. There's a donation link in Courtney's bio here, right? I didn't even like this post. I'm whack. There's a link here in her bio. Please make sure you go, and I'm going to make sure that I end this live stream with a reminder for folks who are coming in a little later. Good morning, Nicole. All right, so we're going to talk about Candyman. We're talking about gentrification. We're going to talk about public housing. And there's no other way to really support or to kind of like, I've been given the word undergird a workout, but perhaps let's take it beyond the talk, right? Let's take it. Sometimes I feel like people, not just this content, but a lot of social justice content in general, people like to peruse, curate, save, share posts But how do we turn that into actual action? So as we talk about gentrification, talk about the origins of public housing, we talk about all of these things, right, today, and Candyman and that social commentary within the films. It'd be great if y'all go over to Courtney's page, support, share. Don't bug her, but gently ask her how you can engage with her efforts to continue this mutual aid initiative. Okay. And again, I'm going to reiterate this at the end of today's live stream. All right. So shout out Courtney. She's so beautiful. She's so pretty. While I'm on Instagram, I wanted to, let me just do this before I get too distracted. Shout out to everybody who has purchased a shirt. I was very modest with, the first batch of shirts, and let me tell y'all are coming through. I'm almost sold out. I don't have no larges left. Got a couple mediums left, and I want to say thank you, Nicole. Your shirt's in the mail. Caitlin, your shirt's in the mail. A bunch of y'all shirts in the mail, and then I got a huge stack over here of shirts that are going out. Shout out to all of you all who just went above and beyond. Some of you all have also. I asked you for $1 amount, and you gave another. And I just want to say, like I literally sent Jared a voice memo, like, telling him how moved I was by that. So I really appreciate it. I do not take any support for granted, and including you purchasing these t-shirts, because your girl might be a full-time live streamer. And so, more, I'm just trying to pour into this, right? So thank you. I've got one DM. Someone's asking for a medium. I got you. I got to figure it out. I know I did this a little sloppily too. It's because I had such a modest quantity, and I didn't set up a shopping site so you can pick, and quantities will be already, set and all that. But the next batch, we will probably have to do that, so that way I don't have to worry about inventory as much. Thank you for the new subscribe. Or Kia, thank you, Kia. I appreciate you. And so also we're thinking of Jared and I. Jared came up with this idea on his own. Jared, who is a great DJ, y'all, not just here, it's primarily here in Charleston. But Jared has offered to sell Charleston Activist Network t-shirts at an upcoming Poorhouse gig. And so before I even just announce that, I'm going to confer with Jared later on today and figure out if that's going to happen, if we can get a batch made. Shout out to Wes from Island Graphics. We'll do that. All right. All right, let's get to it. Y'all came here for Candyman's message. Y'all came here to get an early Halloween scare, right? Well, white supremacy's always been scary, so you ain't got to wait for Halloween if you live on Earth, but especially if you live in Charleston. Thank you for the gift sub. Yay! Hey Meg. Okay, I got you. Hey Joni. Okay. No. Okay, and Joni. So no larges left. I think I got. Joni, if you can go to IG. Just DM me, and then we'll talk about it there. DM me on IG if you want a shirt. That's pretty much where I've been processing orders. All right. Thank you to everyone who's purchased one already. Side note, we're gonna get into gentrification. So look. So I was at Make Manifest. Shout out Make Manifest in Brooklyn. I believe Black women owned shop, and this shirt right here with Sade, Yo, I copped this shirt. I just wanted to show that real quick. I'm wearing it right now. Y'all can't see it, but I'm wearing a lime green version. It's so dope. All right. I'm going to leave this up because I want to go back to Courtney's page at the end. All right, cool. All right, we'll do that. So let's get to what y'all came here for. So the movie Candyman, like I said, the original aired in 1992. A remake was supposed to come out last year. Would have actually coincided with all of the uprisings and the social justice and this we know we didn't have a racial reckoning in America. We know that the racial reckoning that wasn't, but Candyman would have factored neatly into what we were all experiencing politically, what we were all experiencing within our communities in terms of our calls for justice, our calls for cops to stop killing us, Black people, the calls to end extrajudicial killings of Black people, Black women, Black girls, Black boys, Black men, Black people. Candyman, the both actually, but Candyman, the newest remake would have factored really neatly into a lot of what took place last year. So some of the reviews kind of talk about that, like, is it a year too late? But it's actually fine. It is what it is. But let me just show you. Okay, like I said, the original Candyman, slept on it. I can't watch horror like that. I'm going to show you the original trailer right here, the 1992 Candyman trailer. Shout out Virginia Madsen. She is so fine. She is fly. I'm a big Virginia Madsen fan. Real random. But yeah, she's so beautiful in this movie. So let's play this and then we're gonna hop out if we can. Oh wow. Okay.
Have you ever heard of Candyman?
On Blu-ray, y'all.
If you look in the mirror, you say his name 5 times.
In cities everywhere,
Candyman.
they whisper his name.
Right. Candyman.
It's just a story,
Candyman.
Candyman.
just a ghost story.
Candyman.
An entire community starts attributing the daily horrors of their lives to a mythical figure.
The legend first appeared in 1890. He was attacked, mutilated, and burned to death. Poor Candyman.
Helen, a woman died in there. Leave it.
Everyone knows he isn't real.
That's modern oral folklore.
White people, why y'all always go into the horror? Why do y'all always run into the danger in these movies? It's just a cultural question. Us Black people want to know. Why y'all crawling through condemned housing project walls? I just want to know.
Everyone except Helen Lyle.
Bring it up.
It ain't safe around here.
I don't scare too easy.
Wanna know about Ruthie Jean? They ain't never gonna catch him.
Who?
Candyman.
Who is that?
I came for you.
Do I know you?
Now she is about to discover
Helen? Get out! Get out!
what's behind the mystery.
I'm sick.
What's behind the legend.
Listen, he's under the bed.
And most terrifying of all,
Come with me.
what's behind the mirror.
He's here.
Candyman, you don't have to believe. Just beware.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right here. Real quick. So Candyman's speech is starring Virginia Madsen. The Candyman, the Candyman figure is played by Tony Todd. Exceptional. This was originally based on it was described as a novella length book by Clive Barker. You see his name right there. Let me put my right there, right? Clive Barker, right? So in that novella, The Forbidden, it was called The Forbidden, based on Forbidden by Clive Barker. This movie, the original movie, was executive produced by Clive Barker. And we know it went on to make, a bunch of Candyman and stuff like that. But the first one, what I love about Tony Todd being in this role, Tony Todd making the I don't want to call him a villain, the vengeful demon character, I'm gonna say it like that, making him a Black man, to me, was a stroke of genius. And then situating it in Cabrini Green. If you're not familiar, we're going to get to that a little bit, about the history of Cabrini Green. Ever since my brother graduated from his undergrad and moved to Chicago, I learned more about shit, I learned so much about Chicago. Did I say Charleston? I hope I said Chicago. But anyway, ever since my brother moved to Chicago after undergrad, I learned so much about just housing, and redlining is so effing real. I'm just saving up my F word reserves. The redlining and the gentrification and the displacement is so, like, you can it moves you if you are in tune with community. If you go to places and you try to be present, you can feel it on so many levels, right? And so I've learned a lot about what took place there. I'm not an expert, but I learned a lot about just anecdotally even, right? So that's the original movie. But what I really think was a stroke of genius was that the social commentary that's offered in there in terms of, and Virginia Madsen's character mentions it, all of these things that are visited upon Black people living in this area. Sometimes, urban legends evolve, or urban legends come out of that to justify or help folks rationalize why all of this trauma is occurring. Why are they experiencing all of this? The extrajudicial killings of by police people. Maybe you use folklore and urban legends to explain away why there's such high crime rates, why this and that is happening, right? It's like you create a boogeyman. And I almost feel like Candyman, this demonic, vengeful character, is a proxy for white supremacy, even though it's a Black man. And the remake, I like what the remake did in terms of explaining why this character was Black and how he evolves, right? I'm not going to spoil it too much, but that's my takeaway, right? Yeah, and Justin, to your point, watch it again through the lens of like Justin today. It's a great time to revisit this movie. It's not just because it's scary. Some stuff is funny. It's 1990s. It's funny to laugh at certain things. Some things. But I think the movie holds up remarkably. Honestly, I think the movie holds up remarkably. And again, the messages. So now I'm going to show you the trailer for the remake. Y'all can see I kind of try to cue up a bunch of stuff. So here's the trailer for the 2021 version of Candyman.
Candyman. The urban legend is, if you say his name 5 times while looking in the mirror, he appears in the reflection and kills you.
Who would do that?
Candyman. 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 Candyman.
Well, we're still alive.
Let's go.
Trina, you broke the door.
I'm literally jumping.
I feel really connected to this neighborhood. Cabrini Green. It was the projects. I just moved in around the corner.
The old candy factory.
I'm an artist.
You looking for Candyman?
Can I just say, let me rewind it. I love these Black men in this movie, but I love me some Coleman Domingo on another level. Like, I love me some him.
The old candy factory.
I'm an artist.
It's his voice.
Candyman. He's the monster that's part of this neighborhood.
Why are you drawn to this?
I'm hoping to spread the story all about Candyman. The mirror invites you to summon him. You should say his name. I dare you.
Candyman.
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 Don't say that.
Yeah, what are you talking about? It's not roaches, they're bees. Where you see roaches at? It's still bees. He got stung by a bee. Kia, what are you talking about?
Candyman.
I think I made a mistake. I brought him back.
Candyman isn't real!
Something's happening to me.
He had a purpose for you to be another one of his terrible stories.
I guess he found me.
I am the writing on the wall.
I got you, kid.
The sweet smell of blood. Be my victim.
This is not real. It's not real.
Candyman.
Oh man, y'all. So yeah, Kia, okay, yeah. Yeah, they were bees. I'm glad you, yeah. Yo, let me just say something. Shout out to Terrace Theater. That's where I went to go see the movie last night. Oh, shout out to, real quick. Shout out to, let me see. I see you, Joni. I got your DM. Shout out to, what's your name? Was it Jameson? It's J Smith on Instagram. It's Charleston Photo du Jour. I saw you at the movie theater. You said, hey. I think you said your name was Jameson. Shout out to you. Terrace Theater's the bomb. Shout out to the nameless black woman behind me. So check it. So I see Candyman. I knew I was going to talk about Courtney's mutual aid effort. I knew I was going to talk about Joseph Floyd Manor and all that stuff, right? Yeah, Beyonce's singing in the background. You know, Jordan Peele, real quick. Jordan Peele loves to take a black popular song like he did with Us. He took I Got Five on it, made it sound really scary. Say My Name from Destiny's Child, made it sound really scary. Say My Name. Also think about the cries for justice when Breonna Taylor was murdered by police, when George Floyd was murdered by police, we say what? Say their names, right? So that's, you get it? So they really talk about police violence in this movie, and in this movie specifically, and they hint at that type of crime and whatnot in the original, but more so in the remake, right? Right? Yeah, you got to go see it, Whiskey Need. Whiskey Need, I read your message yesterday evening. I'm glad you're still here in this form. Thank you, Whiskey Need. And I got your shirt. Your order's over there. But yeah, so let me tell you. So I'm sitting there. Jameson was in the lobby. We said, what's up? Da-da-da-da-da. Then I sit down by myself. And I'm by myself. I'm in Terrace Theater. It's dark. I haven't even opened it since I was in the theater. I took this little like moleskin with me just because it was there. And then I just had to start writing in the dark. I can't even tell you what I wrote because I was I did good. It's legible. It's legible. I start jotting notes immediately in the dark. And shout out to the nameless black woman behind me, because y'all, now this is the criticism of Candyman that I agree with. It is crazy on the nose. Like, is like no subtlety at all. So for those who struggle with subtlety in terms of navigating issues like gentrification, white supremacy and blackness and white spaces, if you struggle with that, this is a good way for you to kind of get it. And I'm not trying to be smart or laugh at like people who struggle with certain concepts, right? I'm just saying that this is really on the nose. And so there was no one part that was more on the nose than the commentary about gentrification and how cities use artists or court artists, contemporary white artists specifically, they court them to do all this creative placemaking and to beautify these areas that they have left. They have cut off from investment, cut off from support, cut off from all types of aid, right? And there was this part in the movie where they talk about, you know, it was very on the nose, but it was on point. They talked about how gentrification, what it looks like, what it would resemble, and then they say, you know, they mention a Whole Foods pops up in an area that was once predominantly black, and I say, and I yell, because I'm one of those people in the theater, I'm one of those stereotypes, I'm one of those black cliches. I yell, or a Publix referencing Gadsden Green. And then the lady behind me said, West Edge. I turned around, I was like, you got that right. The way that, and that's the thing I live for, those black cultural moments where we don't even know each other, but the shared experiences in our awareness of issues, our awareness of the changes that are taking place in Charleston that have taken place historically. I love that. It was just so amazing. It was just a really quick moment. But I said, or Publix, people laughed a little bit. I didn't do it for the last, but people laughed just a little tiny bit. And then the lady behind me said, West Edge. I was about to fall out. It was really, 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 really like, it kind of like was like a chilling moment because he's describing Charleston. Like, it's just Charleston. It's just a different city. I mean, it's a fictional, story, but it's Charleston. And so it seems like when I was gone, it seems like I missed a lot. I'm gonna take out some of this Pratt stuff I was watching. It seems like I missed a lot of news when I left Charleston for the week. And there's one article. Let's see. I think I downloaded it. There's one article. Come on. Hold on one second. I like how my internet is acting slow now. Don't even play. Don't play with me. All right, hold on. Let me pull it up over here. Not that over there that y'all are seeing. There's one article that I discovered, that I read this morning. Let me find it. This right here. So this was, I'm gonna move it over. All right, I'm gonna expand that and then I'm gonna bring this over. I'm gonna reduce this. Boom, boom. So this article was written by Adam Parker. And I want to give Adam Parker recognition for the Honorable Lucille Whipper story. That was great. This one, you know what? And I'm gonna be real. I think some of my criticism of Adam is misplaced. It's Adam and David Slade on this story here. And I want to say this, I want to acknowledge that I know just after having conversations with people who have left the Post and Courier, I understand how PJ and Mitch and whatnot and other moneyed interests, whether it be the investment from the billionaires that live here, the Navarros and all of those, right? I understand that the Post and Courier has historically been and is still a political publication. There are certain things they don't mind mentioning haphazardly. There's certain stories they don't mind covering boldly, especially if it's going to get them a Pulitzer. But then there's stories that there's certain territory that they start to traverse, and they do so with almost like, well, we don't know how this happened. Oh, this just happened in a vacuum. And that's what I wanna hope and think that the editors that review these stories, a story like this, right? It's headline, census shows Charleston City and County losing, and it's black people. You don't see it because it's cut off. Losing black people, right? Losing black residents. And I really do want to believe, because I know Adam, even though I don't think that Adam should be occupying the space that he's occupying as a white man, I don't think Adam Parker should be writing about all of this black pain, trauma, historical or present. Adam is a capable writer. He's a good writer, right? And I would like to think that he is being handcuffed or limited by the editors at the paper, if that makes any sense. I don't want to give him too much. Good morning, Anna Marks. I don't want to give him too much leeway, because at some point, that's why you see everybody else bouncing. Everybody's leaving the Post and Courier, including Mitch, who's now working for what Paul Bauer is called a hedge fund, which is the Chicago Tribune. Don't even get me started on the current state of legacy media and newspaper industry throughout the country. So Mitch left. But I really want to hope, I hope that that's it. So this story right here, let me stop talking about it and let me just start referencing some of the pieces. I can't read the whole thing because it's really, really long. But I'm going to read some of the more important pieces. All right. And they tell you to go to the Boom and Balance series about the growth of Charleston, the growth within the state. So Charleston County has lost a larger number of Black residents during the past decade than any other county in South Carolina. Let me repeat that. Charleston County lost a larger number of Black residents during the past decade than any other county in South Carolina, despite an overall jump in population growth. And no South Carolina city lost more Black residents than Charleston, the largest city in the state. So no city, y'all, in South Carolina lost more Black residents than Charleston. I'm gonna stop it there, time out, right? Because the way it progresses, it acts like it's mystical, magical, supernatural shit happening, like Candyman or some shit, right? I'm like, nah, right? Anyway, let's keep going. And I know Adam knows that. I know Adam is not just writing about raw census data. I know he knows what led to this displacement, what led to these demographic shifts. I know he knows that, right? Whether or not he can print it is another story, right? All right. In most of the state's other fast-growing cities and counties, every racial and ethnic group had a larger population in 2020 than in 2010. Among the exceptions were coastal Charleston, I wonder why. Coastal Charleston and Beaufort counties, where the Black population declined. Richland County, where the white population fell. Wow. Fast-growing cities like Charleston, Columbia, Mount Pleasant, and Greenville, shout out Justin, just the upstate, and Greenville, all saw Black populations decline. Let me read that again. Fast-growing cities, up-and-coming city vibes, fast-growing cities, Charleston, Columbia, Mount Pleasant, Greenville, all saw their Black populations decline. All right, this story, y'all, is from the 22nd of August. Yep, 22nd of August. Okay. So here, this is where I throw my laptop across the fucking room. The reasons are myriad. Reasons are myriad. Rents and home prices have soared in Charleston, sending some people in search of more affordable housing in Berkeley or Dorchester counties. It's a trend similar to what's been playing out on the Charleston Peninsula, where the population went from being almost 2/3 Black in 1980 to nearly 2/3 white in 2010. So this is some bullshit. It's like, it's not, okay, so what's causing the increase? Like this is what, it never gets there too. Like I'm spoiler alert, it never really gets to what's causing the rent and affordable housing short. Like it never addresses affordable housing shortage, right? It never addresses anything pointedly, anything. It just, and this is a thing, even for me, y'all, I want y'all to start pushing me, because y'all don't push me enough. The mere mentioning of something, this is I'm taking from Bell Hooks when she said this publicly. So I'm not, if you heard it from Bell Hooks, I'm literally borrowing from her. Like the mere mentioning of a crisis, or the mere mentioning of plight or an ill in society is not analysis. I'm going to need my paper. If you're going to talk about census data, I'm going to need you to analyze that data. And if you can't do it, Adam Parker, which I really don't. That's why I think David Slade was brought in to co-write or contribute to this piece, because he's covering the boom and balance and the growth throughout the state and the growth here in the Low Country. I just don't think that Adam Parker has the range for that. So you need to bring in somebody. you need to figure this out. You need to figure this out, because the mere mentioning of, oh, I don't know why this is happening. You know what the fuck this is happening. You know why this is happening. There goes one F-bomb. You know why this is happening, right? We know why this is happening, right? All right, let me see what you're saying. Justin, you says, I'm going to start calling it worker housing shortage. Mm-hmm. Joni, you said in Richland County, a lot of Black people are moving out of the city into the county. I've seen that trend. I read something. I can't even remember where I read it, Joni, but I read that somewhere as well. Like that's a trend from, like, even me. Like I always tell y'all, I'm part of the reverse migration. I never lived in the city. I lived in Philadelphia for like a minute, and I went to undergrad in Jersey City. I knew real quick city life wasn't for me. I like where I grew up. Tinton Falls was a suburb. I like stuff that I like parking places. I like ample parking. I like being able to drive my car 5 minutes down the street and go into Target. That's my jam, right? I'm real basic. I'm basic AF. I'm apple pie and pumpkin spice with a little splash of sweet potato and some seasoning, but I'm real basic like that, right? So there is a trend of Black people moving out of more urban settings and moving into like suburbs or like country or county, however you want to characterize it. Kia, you went on to say the housing increase is always the excuse in gentrification stories, right? They are doing the same thing in Pittsburgh. Everywhere. Pittsburgh is another conundrum, right? All right, so let me keep going. Let me keep going to the parts I thought were important. It's a really, I really would tell y'all, please read this article. If you need me to liberate it for you, DM me. I'll just send you this PDF that I downloaded. If you want me to liberate it for you. They start talking about the peninsula and shifts, right? And I'm gonna go to my greatest hits in a second. Y'all know how I'm gonna go to my Friends of Gadsden Creek is queued up, and some other the oldies but goodies, right? All right, so it was the last part, y'all, that literally gave me like, and I'm not being like hyperbolic. It gave me chills. This last part right here. Okay, change has to happen. That's a quote pulled from this woman right here, Carolyn Wright Porcher, 71 years old. Okay, so Carolyn Wright Porcher, 71 years old, lived on Ashton Street until she left for college in 1967. After a career in social work, pursued mostly in the Northeast, Wright Porcher returned to Charleston in 2014. So did I. When her father, Benjamin Bone Wright, oh, my daddy's name is Benjamin. He doesn't have a nickname though. Oh, okay. Look at the parallels. I didn't even pick up on that when I first read it. She moved back when her father, Benjamin Bone Wright, died. And y'all, if y'all know who Benjamin Bone Wright is, please put me on game because I don't know, right? Whiskey Neat, you talking? Whiskey Neat. I'm telling you, I love ample parking. Is that a hoodie? No, it's not a hoodie slogan. Okay. I love ample. I just love being able. All right. Anyway, so let me get serious. Let me get focused. Carolyn Wright Porcher is talking about moving back in 2014 when her father, Benjamin Bone Wright, passed away. She moved into one of the family's properties, one of the family properties on Ashley Avenue at the corner of Noonan Street. And this is her quote. If my father's house wasn't here, there would be no place for me to live downtown, she said. I could not afford to live downtown. This is a 71-year-old woman who went on to do great things, got her education, coming back here, probably with a decent retirement. Shout out to her for coming back and living in that house. So she says she's no stranger. Okay, so it says she's no stranger to gentrification. Wright Porcher witnessed lots of it in Harlem, the South Bronx, and Brooklyn. Shout out. I talked to my mom when I was up north. She talked about her cousins that went to Harlem when my mom came up from like the New Bern, North Carolina area. She landed in the Bronx, right? And that's where she had my late sister. She was born in the Bronx. So like Portrait is probably Miss Carolyn's story here is almost like a mirror image of what my family, both my mother and my father, experienced in terms of leaving the South and also ultimately returning to the South. All right, let me reread it again. She's no stranger to gentrification. Wright Porcher witnessed lots of it in Harlem and the South Bronx and Brooklyn. Neighborhood improvement, air quotes, y'all, generally is welcomed by anyone. It's generally welcomed by anyone. It's underlying economic forces pushing people away, to Kia's point, pushing people away that bother her the most, she said. I know change has to happen, but it seems to happen without regard for culture or history. Let me say it again, Miss Carolyn. Somebody got to give me her address because I want to just write her like a fan letter. I know change has to happen, but it seems to happen without regard for culture and history. We talked about this. How many live streams, y'all? All right. When she was a child in Charleston, she walked with her family every Sunday to church nearby. Charleston is losing its historic footprint, y'all. This is a quote from Miss Carolyn. Charleston is losing its historic footprint. Right Portrait said, okay, Black churches have had to move out of the city because the Black congregants have had to move out of the city. A few Black residents remain in her part of the neighborhood, but most are now white. Charleston has built, look at this OG telling us, putting us up on game. Charleston was built by enslaved people, and we lived on the peninsula for hundreds of years. Now all of that has changed. Where are the Black people? Boom. You work with her, League of Women Voters? Okay, good morning, Joy. Joy, your shirt went out yesterday. Is that the end? Oh, that was the end. Mic drop. Where are the Black people? Mic drop. That was a really important piece. Let me see what this other one is. And this was the old throwback. Remember we talked about the Caitlin Bird story about like how they, she covered the city council meeting that ran amok, but also below the fold, there's the story here. Columbia woman evicted after 25 years in church-owned house. And I'm not going to get into this, but this was also something like it just like I kept, because I was searching for gentrification stories within the local media this morning, and this story popped up. So I'm going to revisit this later. And because it's not Charleston specific, I'm not going to delve too much into it. But I thought it was worth at least mentioning that this story from the state newspaper was published that the morning or the day following, I believe, following the city council meeting, right? And so yeah, shout out to Miss Carolyn Wright. Let me see what y'all saying over here. Let me see what y'all saying. Let me catch up. Kia, you said that's why that's what my mom did. Social worker from the Northeast, moved back to Charleston. I'm telling you, it's uncanny how like many Black people have the same story, just in like different details. Whiskey Neat, you said Pittsburgh is all over the place. Gentrification was happening when all these new tech companies were setting up shop there. Then COVID. Now they are not renewing leases, so that the housing situation is messy. Been reading about stuff like similar stories. Thank you so much for sharing that specific detail though about Pittsburgh. And then Kia, you went on to say it sounded horrible. Computers stay falling, y'all. All right, here we go. All right, so yeah, Joy, thank you for telling me that she's she's a real live person. If you can just get the word to her that I really appreciated her contributions to this Adam Parker and David Slade piece, right? It was so amazing. And she's legal women voters. I'm while I'm not affiliated, I'm a fan. All right, let me get back to so seeing Candyman, reading that piece from Adam Parker and David Slade featuring Miss Carolyn's thoughts and about the changes here, of course, reminded me of I don't know why this is acting like this. I don't know why it's taking so long. All right, reminded me of something I've already shared with y'all, right? So while I did it maybe a little clumsily, I loved discussing, what the hell? It's acting crazy. Let me just download it. All right, let me close this out because something's going on. And I hope I'm not losing. I got y'all. Yeah. Cool. Let me just go ahead and so like y'all remember this, right? Y'all remember when I might not have shown this headline. So I found this years ago. This is what was the News and Courier, is the Post and Courier. This is from October 6, 1989. So this is when Oprah came to the Palace Theater. The King Street Palace. Not Palace Theater, King Street Palace, right? Following Hurricane Hugo, I talked about the spectacle of recovery, putting on this big grandiose show for the national, if not national, local audiences, right? Let me just offer up some other commentary that I never get to talk about enough. Oprah Winfrey at this time, and I'm not being fat phobic when I say this skinny Oprah, right? So this is Oprah. And if Evelyn's watching, if you're watching later, Evelyn put me up on this great podcast called Maintenance Phase. And they talk about, it's all about like fighting all this diet culture bullshit and fat phobia. Ugh, right? It's a really good podcast, but it talks about Oprah's wagon full of fat, that episode where she brings out the wagon full of fat. I'm bringing that up because this is skinny Oprah. So this is Oprah when she's ascended to like record popularity, right? This is Oprah, big hair, lollipop, big hair, skinny body, size 10. This is Oprah, tip top, like peak. This is her on her way to where she is now, right? And for her to be competing on the front fucking page with bullshit ass televangelists, Jim and Tammy Faye and them, Tammy Faye Baker, is so on brand for the Post and Courier. For this massively popular Black woman, nationally syndicated show coming to your city in such haste that you have to take the palace, the King Street Palace, which was in no way ready to have anybody in it, let alone a full production from a nationally syndicated talk show. Okay, and for it to be for Oprah to be competing with this dumbass guilty conviction, this literally could be, it ain't even Charleston, is it? Unless y'all can tell me there's some kind of Charleston angle. Is he from Charleston? Did he have a studio? Like, it's just so on brand for the Post and Courier, right? Right? Big hair, y'all. Look at that. Whiskey knee, big hair, high waist, high waist tight belts. Yup, that's peak Oprah, right? Yup. Oh, that. Ooh, hey Courtney, your mama did that liquid diet. Ooh, Lord. Oprah's like seriously. If you listen to that maintenance phase that maintenance phase podcast, and Courtney, hey, I started off with your Joseph Floyd Manor. Y'all tell her in the chat that I started off with Joseph Floyd Manor. Y'all tell her. Because Courtney's been trying to get my attention, and I love my sis so much, and I just want to make sure that I honor you. I'm going to end with Joseph Floyd Manor as well. Right? No, so Oprah did all kinds of stuff, right? Real dangerous. Back then, diet culture was really dangerous. Like, I know, like, I remember Slim Fast commercials. I remember, like, my people's calling them slim farts because they gave you gas, right? I remember all those like kooky diets and all that other stuff. But the shakes that Oprah was on, y'all go listen to Maintenance Phase. Listen to the Oprah with the Wagon of Fat episode. The stuff that she was eating, it was a starvation diet. It was like, if I just go to an all liquid diet for 3 months, yeah, I'm gonna be skinny too. Right, so y'all. It's like a lag here, so I'm seeing y'all talk to Courtney. But no, Oprah's diets. I remember like aerobics. My mom probably don't want me to mention this, but my mom did go to she was not into no liquid diet. My mom and my twin brother and my daddy can eat literally anything and not gain no crazy weight. I'm the one over here whose guts don't process fat and sweets the way theirs does. But my mom used to work out. And she used to wear, like, my mom used to be that cliche, like, you know, the leotard or whatever over the tights, and my mom was that. Yeah. Yup. But no, I thought it was real whack that Oprah had to compete for the front page when she's doing this big, huge production here on the peninsula. But anyway, I brought this up because I brought this up because when I talk about the spectacle of recovery, right? And we talk about Mayor Riley's legacy. We got to talk about how Hugo, and this is pun included, or pun intended rather, Hugo, what I'm pulling up. Hugo is the watermark, the high watermark for where we start seeing these trends. So if you go back to the Adam Parker piece, if you get to read it, you'll get more context. I'm not going to say it's devoid of any details. I'm not going to go that far, but it really does not even begin to touch on the why, right? And I can't remember what study I pulled this from. It's somewhere on either this hard drive or on this computer, but I pulled this from a study from JSTOR. Right. And y'all have seen this already. Y'all have seen me post about this, maybe talk about it clumsily, maybe talk about it pointedly. But right here, you see, of course, 1890. So you know what time it was there, right? right? And you see the fuchsia or the purple line is black population, if you can't see the key. And then the dark navy blue is the white population. And you see from 1890, and let's just get to Hurricane Hugo right here, right? 89, right? Oprah came in 89. You start seeing what? You start seeing this decline in black population on the peninsula, right? And then you start seeing that uptick. So for Adam Parker, or rather for the Post and Courier to publish a piece and not talk about certain milestone moments in Charleston history that may have contributed to, and I'm not talking about Hurricane Hugo. Now, Kia, you mentioned Hurricane Hugo, but it's not just Hurricane Hugo, it's the disaster capitalism and the ambitious development plans that started, right? We know that Mayor Riley starts the Horizon Foundation a little later. In the 90s, we start seeing those TIFs, those 11 TIFs start to be, the groundwork for those TIFs are laid right following Hugo. And so we understand that also, like, so 9 of the 11 TIFs are on the peninsula. So we already talked about how TIFs lead to massive displacement, to our schools being under-resourced. So when you take, our schools being under-resourced, our black areas starting to be just starting to fall because of disinvestment and other things, right? Explicit and subtle, right? Changes. But you cannot write an entire piece about the changing demographics in Charleston and not mention Mayor Riley. No one is writing about how Mayor Riley is the architect of black displacement. I know y'all want his legacy to be the man in Bill Murray's arms, running around the Joe Riley Stadium. I know y'all want his legacy to be all shucks, Orville Redenbacher like type figure. I know y'all want him to be, not y'all literally, but you know what I'm saying, the public at large. Thank you, Courtney. I know y'all want him to be this like caricature of this really nice guy. And I would offer up, I'm sure he's nice. I've said this countless times. I'm sure he's affable. But I know one thing too. I know he's a motherfucking wizard when it comes to displacing black people. Like, poof, look at that decline, y'all. And look at that fall off in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. Look at that precipitous drop. I just wanted to use that word. Look at that precipitous drop, right? You don't get that by happenstance. You don't get that because, our favorite supermarket closed on the peninsula. Or, when after that fire, it ain't nothing like that. It's literally, this is a plan. This was architected, right? By city council, by the mayor, by his Horizon Foundation that is now West Edge. You can't keep talking about why these numbers look like this and not give a critical view of Riley's time. 40 years in office. Egregious. I could only imagine what North Charleston looked like. I could only imagine what certain stats and metrics for North Charleston looks like. I could only imagine, because some of these 30 years, right? So when we watch a movie like Candyman, the remake, it's attempting to have this conversation about gentrification and what that looks like. Again, it's very on the nose. It's not subtle. I don't mind that though, because y'all know subtlety is sometimes lost on me. I mean, I could have used a little bit more finesse, but I found it. I'm gonna see it again. I know I am, because I want to see it again, because I know there's things I missed because I'm writing in the dark. Right? And the matter of fact, let me make sure I read my notes. But so Candyman, to bring it back to the live stream's theme for today, Candyman attempts to tackle that, but it looks at Cabrini Green. So we just kind of covered Charleston and Charleston's history of displacement of black people, black bodies. Now let's bring it back a little bit, because it's hard, y'all. It's hard to talk about Cabrini Green. It's really hard. My brother, I called him from the parking lot of the Terrace Theater yesterday. I'm telling y'all all my business. I just want to put y'all in my head sometime. I want to put y'all in the place of where I was. So that's why I give you so much details. But if you, my brother said, if you want to know more about Cabrini Green, watch 70 Acres in Chicago. And so if you have your library card, I believe it's on the Canopy app. So like Richland County Library, I don't know if Charleston County does. I'd use Richland County Library's card to access Canopy. So you can watch that on Candyman. You can also watch Wilhelmina's War, which is highly recommended. It talks about the HIV/AIDS epidemic here in South Carolina, and Nikki Haley and her incompetent ass makes an appearance in there, and it's just devastating. Watch Wilhelmina's War. Use your Richland County or whatever library card. Watch that, but also watch 70 Acres in Chicago. I believe, again, when I Googled it yesterday, I believe it popped up on the Canopy app. So 70 Acres in Chicago, we're going to play the trailer so you get a sense. And then we're going to play a little bit from that 1982 PBS documentary about Cabrini Green. It's heartbreaking, and it's an hour long, so we're just going to watch a little bit of it. But let's watch this trailer here. Let me rewind it.
This is some valuable land.
Shout out Bobby Rush.
And it's been valuable for...
Gold star for anybody who could tell me who Bobby Rush is without Googling it. Gold star if you can drop in the chat who Bobby Rush is without Googling it real quick. Gold star.
For a long time. And you got folks who've had their eyes on this land, who want this land. They salivating. You know, they drooling at the lip.
Sound familiar?
Because they want this land.
So my brother told me, so you saw that time, that date stamp? My brother told me on the phone, like, yeah, the last tower came down in 2011. But they came down over this long, look how long of a period that is, right? It came down over this period from 1995 to 2011. The last tower went down in 2011. There you go, Joni.
Is moving us out to get higher class people in. That's how I see it. People who can pay more money.
What happens when you replace a community? The nation's largest housing experiment.
Public housing world. No one else wanted it.
Fuck Mayor Daley, corrupt as fuck. Chicago is a hot mess. I don't even know how my brother lived in Chicago for so long. You talk about, I would have had some sort of like heart disease. I probably do already. Charleston's not giving me much of a break either. But fuck Mayor Daley. But did y'all see that? I want to rewind that because I'm kikiing a little bit too much. But I want to rewind that caption right there.
This is the largest transformation of public housing in the world.
Largest transformation of public housing.
Wanted to tackle this issue because it's very complex and it's very difficult, and
I
deals
see you,
mostly with poverty people.
I'm gonna read your comment.
Yeah, but aren't you supposed to be relocated to this area?
You see?
That's what they tell us.
So I'm telling you. So I'm before I even go into the theater, I'm on the phone with my brother. I'm like, yo, why didn't you tell me Candyman, the original, is based on Cabrini Green, yada, yada, yada. He was like, he's like me, like he don't really do the horror thing, right? So he never watched it either. And I tell him like, yo, you got to watch both. After I left the theater, it's like, you got to watch both. Just forget the horror part. Just watch it. Right. And, but as I watched the movie, as he's telling me about this and I watched this trailer, it's like Gadsden Green, Cabrini Green, Gadsden Green, Cabrini Green, Joseph Floyd Manor, Cabrini, like the parallels are almost like endless parallels. And so what's going on right now with our housing, right? Within our public housing system, they are saying that they are refurbishing a number of units. They're saying they're going to move residents out and then move them back in some instances. They're also promising that they're going to move them out and give them a stipend. Shout out to Taylor, one of the fellow Friends of Gadsden Creek, who before I left and went out of town, we were meeting at Redux to talk about some planning with our group. And Taylor mentioned this really interesting stat. I want to say, she said close to or 80% of the housing vouchers being given to the city of Charleston's public housing residents that are, that are being moved out of their housing units. Taylor told me that 80% of those vouchers are being used in, I want to say, Dorchester County. So again, that piece, I'm going to go back and read Adam Parker's piece. Are you talking about the housing vouchers and how people can't use them here? They're not coming back like, oh, I live in West Ashley. Oh, I live in Avondale. Oh, I'll live. They're not doing that. They're not coming. Oh, I'll live over here, on this side of Charleston. They're not using. They can't afford to. They can't afford to use those vouchers. Those vouchers are being used in other areas, most notably Dorchester County. And I think I got that right. I'm going to circle back to Taylor and make sure I get it right. But I believe it was 80% of the vouchers being issued to Charleston residents who are being displaced from their public housing units. Those vouchers are not being used. And we knew that, right? You can't. Y'all, if I told you how much I pay for this damn studio apartment, y'all lose y'all mind. It don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. So I know they're not using the vouchers. We know they're not using them on the peninsula, let alone, but they're not using them in Charleston at all. And that's the plan. Y'all get it? Like that's the feature, not the bug. You feel me? Because we've seen it happen time and time again. We've seen it happen most notably with the folks over here in Cabrini Green. So the documentary filmer right here is asking the man a question. Isn't this where they're supposed to be moving you from? Y'all just saw Cabrini Green Towers being demolished. And then you see him walking down this well-appointed street. A resident.
Yeah, but aren't you supposed to be relocated to this area?
I don't know, Kia. I think they vary.
That's what they tell us. Do I believe them? No.
Spoiler alert,
when
they don't go there.
Cabrini Green residents started coming in, there's a sentiment of, we feel like we're being outnumbered. And I don't know if it was more of an outnumbered by Black people or if it was more just outnumbered by people who weren't middle class.
Some people get it. Some people really understand that they have to set an example for people who don't know what it's like to earn a living and to be proud of yourself and be proud of what you have.
There was this whole belief that if so-called public housing residents, if they move next door to such affluent.
Let me just rewind that. I want y'all to hear a virulent racist. I want y'all to listen to it and hear a virulent, because some of y'all get confused. Oh, is that racist? Is that bad? Did he say what I think he said? Now I know my Twitch peeps get it. But did you hear this man tell you that people who are caught up in the cycle of poverty don't have a sense of pride, don't work hard?
By people who weren't middle class.
Some people get it. Some people really understand that they have to set an example for people who don't know what it's like to earn a living and to be proud of yourself and be proud of what you have.
There was this whole belief that if so-called public housing residents, if they move next door to such affluent neighbors, that would make them better people, which was very
Good morning,
insulting.
Jessica.
I think there's a rage when you grow up and you know a community, you see that community get torn down, and then you see new people come in who expect things to change and expect you to change and say.
And this is what the new Candyman version explicitly says. They don't hint at it. They don't give you any type of like artistic illusions. They serve it up to you almost verbatim what he said. So when you go and you hear comments about the changes that people experience, think about this clip from this trailer.
There's something wrong with you.
Here we go. Step, step, flash it, glide, round and round. Now bring it down, now separate, then bring it up. Can't get enough, can't get enough. Step, step, flash it, glide, round and round.
Black people love a line dance now.
Many of us fought against change.
I think everybody
and somewhere
does.
along the line, we understood that change is inevitable. And so, how
Justin,
do you prepare
right?
for change? And that got to be the bigger picture. How do you prepare for change?
Then bring left in front. Now you step in.
70 acres in Chicago. Try to find it, y'all. Find it on Canopy. Liberate it off the dark web. That's what me and Amron was doing. Find it. Just try to find it. Well, if this is worth investment, so if it's somewhere available for purchase, make sure you support it. Don't. I don't want. I don't want to undercut people trying to do who did some really good work. Ooh. Okay. All right, so that's 70 acres in Chicago. And like my brother says, if you understand Cabrini Green, and the footprint is a little all over the place. And the movie actually gives you a little look at that. The movie does this thing where they're in the courtyard of a vacated, dilapidated housing project that looks a lot like Gas and Green, like 1 or 2 stories. I can't remember if it's just 1 or 2 stories, but it's pretty low. It's not towering. So you have the main character. I keep messing up his name. Is it Yaya? I keep messing up his name, and I'm in love with him, and I don't know his name. I just call her my boo. So Yaya is in the housing project, the vacated, dilapidated housing project, and he's taking pictures. You saw it in the trailer I showed earlier, and the skyline. You see you see the cranes. Charleston, you see the cranes, and then you see that modern urban skyline that Chicago is known for. And what you don't see are the original towers that once stood that make up the larger Cabrini Green footprint, but he is standing in Cabrini Green, what's remaining, I guess, of that area, right? All right. So I'm gonna back out of this. And I want to now take it back to public, like how we got here. Well, I want to go back more into Cabrini Green. So I let this, when I got home last night from the movie, I kind of just let this play as I did my little thing around the apartment. And when I tell you, I just kept stopping and just like not getting anything done because these accounts, it's almost like oral history of what it was like. And it's very grainy, gritty footage, but it's so powerful. And this is on YouTube. Shout out to the channel called Smooth Jazz Dallas. Smooth Jazz Dallas posted this video from 1982 PBS documentary on Cabrini Green. So let's hop into it.
Anxiety and
I'm gonna find it. Yo, the opening credits. I'm 40, y'all. The opening credits, not this. The opening PBS credits, though, major throwback vibes. I remember. Hold on, here we go. Who remembers this? Who remembers this? Hey, Honor Mark.
We put them in a little world of their own which they could survive in, but not prosper in.
Well, she just throwed her young life away. Well, she could have been made a correction.
Yep, electric company.
I see some new tracks.
We're creating a large number of social misfits in the inner city, which will prey on the larger community later on.
So they're saying they're creating, I don't like the language, I reject the language, but I understand what the person is attempting to say. He said that they're creating misfits that will later on contribute to the problem. What I would say is that you're entering people into a violent cycle of poverty from which they cannot escape, right? And poverty is violence, and violence begets violence. That's what I would have said. I wouldn't have labeled anyone a misfit who's just caught up in something that they didn't create, right? Also, I want to say this: when I started visiting my brother in Chicago, when he relocated, so that was like 04, 05. He graduated from college a year before me. I graduated in 04. He graduated in 03. So he was already situated. So I remember I went on spring break. Look at me, spring break in Chicago. Yay, cold as hell in April, cold as fuck. That lake effect shit, I don't know how, Whiskey Knee, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you did it. Anyway, I'm on the west side chilling. I'm on the west side and I'm listening to the people. Again, even when I didn't actively know what I was doing, I connected to the environment. I wanted to be present. And I'm listening to the Black people in his community. And I'm like, damn, I said, Terrence, why everybody sound like they from Mississippi? And like, it didn't even occur to me. He was like, the Great Migration. And so as you listen to some of these oral history, I'm gonna call this an oral history. As you listen to some of these accounts and these testimonies from folks who live in Cabrini Green at this time in the 80s, you're gonna hear voices that sound reminiscent of voices you would hear in the South, in the Black Belt. So I just wanna point that out when you watch.
It's a vicious environment in which we live, man. You know, you're gonna always have to put yourself on guard.
I hear y'all. Y'all funny. Good morning,
A
D.
Chicago skyline, 5 miles south of the one most people know.
Look at that skyline.
This is Robert Taylor Homes, the largest housing project in the world, the poorest urban community in the United States.
A lot of people don't like to come in the project because they really, they're afraid because they think something might happen to them. And I couldn't much blame them for that because a lot of people have got killed over here in the project, you know. And I think if I wasn't living in the project, I probably would be afraid to come up in here too.
This is an America far different from the one most of us know, along a street most of us will never see, Federal Street. Hello, I'm Harding Carter. This community was created by and maintained with federal dollars. Those dollars built Federal Street, like many others in big cities, in an effort to help the poor. The result is a separate society, still poor, but impoverished in far more complex ways than simple material need.
I want to reject a little bit of that premise that we're gonna watch another, because we're only gonna watch a little bit of this, and then we're gonna get to an explainer like how we got public housing. So it wasn't just like to help the poor, right? And I think that's why that white guy with the punchable face, as you say, Justin, that white guy perpetuated this narrative that, you know, poor people are kind of like, oh, they're given things and they don't take care of the things that they're given, right? Type of, like, you hear all those tropes, welfare queen, all that, right? That's why fiscal conservative Republicans, you know, reject entitlements, is because it doesn't teach people how to work hard, yada, yada, yada. It's bullshit. So these weren't just created to help poor people, right? I want to just push back on that, and we'll get to some content that complicates what he just said.
The people who live here are poor and black. They are far removed from traditional American values, but also traditional American opportunity. They are a people at war with each other, with themselves, and with the society around them. For most of them, Federal Street is a dead end. Tonight, we will examine why. Our story begins here at the currency exchange. Mrs. Eva Nash and her son Dwight are here to pick up welfare checks and food stamps. This is payday.
Wow.
When they open up the door, they pushes you in. So they had followed me all the way around when I was going in, and I had this newspaper. So I was inside, but my arm and hand was on the outside. They almost broke my wrist. And people be falling all down, people be losing their shoes and stuff. And you know, that's ridiculous. That's not right.
Mrs. Nash has been standing in such lines for many years. 10 of her adult children now do the same.
I know, Mother. I used to always tell them all the time, you know, when they were small, that I wanted them to go to school and get their education, so they wouldn't have to wind up, you know, being on aid like I am. Every last one of them is on aid. I don't cash my check here. They take out too much.
It wasn't always this way for the Nash family. In the early 1950s, they were poor, but the men had jobs. Eva Pickett's father was a coal miner in Akmar, Alabama.
Beautiful.
In 1953, she traveled north to Chicago to marry Willie Nash, a World War II veteran from Greenville, Mississippi. Like many Southern black people, Mr. Nash had migrated north in the 1940s, lured by jobs that weren't available back home. He supported the family as a factory worker, postal employee, and cab driver for 20 years. As those years passed, job opportunities for the unskilled in industrial cities like Chicago began to dwindle, while government...
I hate that word, unskilled. They have skills, y'all. Again, and I'm not trying to like, the special, I'm sure during its time, I feel the compassion, like I feel that this is a compassionate telling of the story, but the language just doesn't hold up anymore. They are not unskilled, right? We got to find better ways to talk about impoverished people, or people who have poverty thrusted upon them, people who are violently entered into cycles of poverty, but they're not unskilled. You can't go to fucking war, come back and be unskilled. It doesn't happen. You can't be from the South Mississippi and work as a sharecropper or whatever and say you don't have no skills, right? But that's the terminology they use to justify why these people couldn't take advantage of certain opportunities, right? While other people are benefiting from nepotism, fugazi ass meritocracy, or whatever it is, right? Or just class privilege, white privilege, whatever you want to call it. But the black people, poor people people of color are routinely left out of opportunities. Let me just make a really, really janky point. Look at the whole like modern, recent Jeopardy fiasco, right? White host comes in. We know how we feel about LeVar Burton. I know that I love listening to LeVar Burton. I would listen to LeVar Burton read the fucking phone book to me, right? We know where he stands in our lives. We know where where we first met him, whether it was on Reading Rainbow or in Roots or on Star Trek. Right. For Jeopardy and the production team to come out, because there's a whole like controversy for the people who don't know, they're trying to pick Alex Trebek's successor, even though he mentioned 2 people. One of them was a woman of color, a black woman rather. And LeVar Burton did his whole guest spot during the damn Olympics. So they used ratings as a justification. Oh, he didn't do good. The ratings didn't do good. It was during the Olympics. Like, it was a whole bunch of other factors, right? And and the time, because of the Olympics, the time kept moving. The time of when the show would air. And yet I'm using that, again, this is real janky, I admitted that. But they come up with reasons and justifications not to give black people a chance. Alex Trebek named 2 people he'd like to see be interviewed or be considered to replace him. One of them was a black woman from from CNN, a political reporter. And I'm like, you come up with reasons and you fabricate, and now you had this Mike Richards guy who was not the best pick, but because he looked the part and he had put himself in certain positions, you have that pro-white association. If it's white, then it has to be credible. If it's white, then it must be someone that's in a position of authority. You immediately disqualify a black person who is so capable. And you come up with that. And so when I hear unskilled worker, to bring it back, when I hear unskilled worker attributed to black people, it immediately makes me think of all the times that black people have routinely been denied opportunities to just participate, right? An icon. Thank you, Nicole. It is a nostalgia episode, right? I'm not gonna play the theme song. When I get sad sometimes, I know this is weird. When I get sad sometimes, no, I play that. I love that theme. I'll play an episode if I can find one, if it ain't held hostage on PBS.
Programs to end poverty grew more numerous and more generous.
Exactly, Jessica.
All our material riches will avail us little if we do not use them to expand the opportunities of our people.
Okay.
To the prosperous Americans of the 60s, poverty no longer seemed acceptable.
And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
The war on poverty was aimed at providing children like the young Nashes equal opportunity, better nutrition, health care, improved education, expanded welfare, intensive job training. But despite all the programs meant to bring them out of poverty, the Nash family seemed to slip more deeply in. In 1972,
again, placing the blame on them. So it's not. Despite these programs, the Nash family still. Why then? Why? All right, let me get fast forward a little bit because we got a little bit understanding about the Nash family, but I want to see. I don't want to talk about the numbers. I want to talk. Yeah, I want to. Hold on. Here we go. I think this is the part I want to hear.
3970.
If for some reason family income goes up, so does the rent.
Yep.
Up to 30% of adjusted family income.
It's a rigged game. Living in public
There's barely
housing.
enough money for the basic nutritional necessities.
Just about everything I buy, mostly I buy by the case. I buy my meal by the case, my flour, my sugar. I buy tomato paste by the case. I buy ketchup by the case. I buy chicken by the case, neck bone by the case. I buy a lot of beans, which my children always say, "Mama, we tired of eating beans. We don't want to eat beans," I wasn't looking to be on as long as I am now,
What is it about life on Federal Street that immobilizes its residents, keeps them trapped in this dangerous and frightening place? For 13 years, this has been the home of the Nash family.
Look at this, y'all.
What? Tell her don't go up there by herself. I didn't want to move to NCHA, but I didn't have no other choice. Because, nowadays people don't want to take you if you got a lot of kids. And it's been kind of rough.
Housing like this went up in major cities across the country. a legacy of the Housing Act of 1949, which ordered slums cleared and replaced with modern buildings that would meet the goal of a decent home and a suitable living environment for every American family. Robert Taylor Homes was the largest, most ambitious housing project in the world. $75 million, 28 buildings, 16 stories high, 4,415 apartments stretching over 95 acres. The opening ceremony was a celebration of pride. The first families moved in with high expectations. Now, 24 years later, the reality is very different from the concept.
It's really not safe here, you know. And I used to always say all the time when I used to see on TV before I moved in the project that I would never move in the project. But the other buildings where we stayed at, they got condemned, the water was cut off, we didn't have no way to flush the toilet, we had to borrow water from other people that, you know, homeowners, and the people got tired of, you know, giving us water. And the lady from the Urban Progress Center came out and asked us would we like to move. And we told her yes, so that's when we got a chance to move in CHA.
3 generations of the Nash family, 15 people, live in this 6-room apartment on the 5th floor.
I really want to move away from my mother because I know my mother tired of us living with her. I know my mother want to be home, be on her own. I've been trying ever since my little girl was 1 and she's 7. She'll be 8 in August.
And I want to stop right there, because I want to make the distinction. So, like Robert Taylor Homes and Cabrini Green, I don't want to conflate the two if they're not. I was under the impression that this was a division of within the same complex of the Cabrini Green housing complex. If anyone has any more. Because I know they're both, this is Chicago, y'all. It's not a completely separate experience, but I'm trying to make sure when I search Cabrini Greens and the Robert Taylor Homes, they come up. But I believe that this was like a number of complexes around the area. So it gives you, if it's not specifically Cabrini Green, it gives you an idea as to what public housing looked like in the Chicago area, right? So, but that being said, let's back it up a little bit. Let's back it up a little bit more. And that was just, I want to also, let me just take a time out. That was a lot, right? When we talk about poverty, when we talk about gentrification, when we talk about the displacement of Black families, Black people, when we talk about what Miss Carolyn mentioned to Adam Parker and David Slade, we talk about that loss of culture and loss of history. I wanna say that this is not entertainment for me. This is not entertaining to cover. And though I'm going through this a little fast, and we can share and exchange, pleasantries in the chat session, and I want us to keep doing that. I want to also acknowledge that this is extraordinarily difficult to even listen to and watch. I'm hearing voices that sound like my aunts, that sound like my family. I'm seeing Black people dressed like how I used to dress, eating the things I used to eat. I'm seeing how people refuse to treat people who are impoverished or people who are struggling with poverty, refusing to treat them with dignity, the dignity that they deserve. And so all of that is really hard to watch. And I think you all have kind of intimated that in some way, shape, or form in the comments. Nicole, you mentioned earlier how expensive it is to be poor. It's very expensive to be poor in America, and it's also a tragedy that there is even this is in the 80s, this level of poverty, and we know how it looked now, right? Post-COVID, right? It's tragic to see that this level of poverty exists in the world's richest nation. It shouldn't be a reality at all. There shouldn't be this type of drastic poverty, but we know why it exists, right? Right? Okay, I got you. So Robert Taylor Homes is on the south side and Cabrini Green is on the north side. Got it. Thank you. Right. Thank you so much. And so while that wasn't Cabrini Green specifically, we did see so you saw the trailer for 70 acres in Chicago. That's Cabrini Green. This one right here is mislabeled. It's the Robert Taylor Homes. Thank you so much, Whiskey Neat. But we see that those experiences have to be parallel, right? They have to have a lot in common. I should say it more like that. What happened in Robert Taylor Holmes, I'm sure a lot of the same things happened. But I do think y'all should still watch that documentary. Like if you go to Smooth Jazz Dallas on YouTube and watch what's labeled as the Cabrini Green PBS special, I do think it's worth you watching before you go see Candyman. I think, okay, this is what I would say. If you haven't seen either Candyman, like the 1992 classic or the new one, I would say watch 70 Acres in Chicago first, then see 1992 Candyman or revisit it, then see the new remake. That's what I would tell you to do. But somewhere in between, go ahead and watch that PBS documentary from Smooth Jazz Dallas. Stop saying that. All right, I wanted to get more. Wow, yeah. Look what I was watching last night. It's so real though. Sex and the City ruined women's relationship to money. It's so dead. Worth a watch. All right, I'm going to get to how we got here. Here we go.
Actually part of a large...
It's 9:00. Good morning for those who might have to leave, but good morning for newcomers. So this is why do we have housing projects?
Today, over 2 million Americans are living in public housing, and that's a sizable number, though it makes up a relatively small percentage of the population, and it's low compared to other nations that offer similar housing initiatives like, say, the UK. In spite of that, we largely only hear news about public housing in the US when there's a moment of crisis or when decisions about state and federal budgets are being handed down. Take, for example, Chicago's Cabrini Green homes, which were built beginning in 1942 and demolished by 2011 due to highly publicized issues with violence and disrepair. The discourse on public housing structures is generally that they're riddled with maintenance issues, crime and unsightly exteriors, or are the victims of budgetary constraints. And yet many, if not most, of these developments nationwide are either at close to full occupancy or have very long waiting lists. And residents of public housing are fighting, not only for improvements to their homes, but also for the right to remain there. That's despite a shift from thinking of public housing as a long-term resource to treating it as a stopgap on residents' trajectories of success that they should look to move out of eventually. So today I wanted to go into the history of how we ended up with approximately 3,400 public housing authorities nationwide and why this state-funded resource is still in such high demand.
Right, Nicole?
The Great Depression marks the beginning of the US federal government's direct funding of public housing.
Come on.
But Professor Lawrence Vail notes in his book on the history of public housing that this is actually part of a larger story about changing attitudes around what constitutes societal responsibility. Namely, when should society assist people in need of housing, and what form should that assistance take?
Care of people.
According to Vail's research, providing housing for people with either financial constraints or who are unable to care for themselves independently has taken a variety of shapes throughout US history. He writes, before there were public housing projects, there were model tenements, zoning laws, and philanthropic developers. There were settlement houses, working class suburbs, and private charities. There were tax advantages for homeowners, land bounties for worthy veterans, and Homestead Act opportunities for thrifty pioneers. There were overseers of the poor, pauper auctions, and the laws of settlement, and there were almshouses, bridewells, and houses of industry.
What's a bridewell?
All of these helped to codify the relationships among land tenure, house form, and labor, and all were attempts at improving poor people. So public housing was developed in the 20th century as part of FDR's New Deal and in the midst of the Great Depression, but it was just the latest event in a longer history between government oversight and coded paternalistic language about improving the poor through housing. That mission, although somewhat consistent, didn't always take exactly the same form. In some of the cases listed earlier, the housing assistance came in the form of private charitable donations that built shared homes for poor families, like almshouses. In others, it came in exchange for forced labor, like the case of houses of industry. And in others still, it came in the form of government initiatives and tax breaks for people who were willing to work to expand the continent.
Okay, I'm gonna back out of that because this super. Go to this, y'all. This is why do we have why do we have housing projects? The Origin of Everything. I believe they discontinued that series, but they still have like buku Origin of Everything videos up. Right? But I believe they just recently stopped it. I want to get to this little piece of the Ken Burns doc here that explains the history of housing. It's from I guess the documentary was the East Lake Meadows. I never watched it, but this clip right here was really interesting, informative. And you got the author of The Color of Law making a cameo up in here.
We are not mature enough as a society, I think, to look in the mirror and see how we manufactured American poverty, how we manufactured housing that was meant to seclude these poor people, and how we turned a blind eye to creating a middle class while simultaneously excluding people from it.
I think this was really, really helpful. We're gonna watch the whole one of this. This is the whole one. We're gonna watch this entire clip.
Uncle Sam starts clearing Atlanta slums in the plan to give modern dwellings to the poor. Secretary of the Interior Ickes fires the first blast.
We think of public housing as a place where low-income, mostly minority families live. That's not how public housing began in this country. During the Depression, many families lost their homes. They couldn't afford to pay rent, and so there was an enormous housing crisis in the country. That was the reason that the Roosevelt administration began the first public housing for civilians in the nation's history.
Here, at the request of the citizens of Atlanta, we have cleaned out 9 square blocks.
Does that even look familiar at all? Nope.
Building. And in their place, we see the bright, cheerful buildings of the Peckwood Housing Project.
The Public Works Administration began to build public housing across the country, primarily for white middle-class families. It also built some housing for African Americans, but it was always segregated. Separate projects for whites, separate projects for African Americans, very often creating segregation in neighborhoods or communities that had not known segregation before.
The government had no interest in seeing this kind of housing go to the poorest of the poor. The poorest of the poor were the people they were trying to get out of the slums to make way for the upwardly mobile working class.
They want residents who fit a certain image. They present them as a middle-class population. You'll see a mother in the starched dress and the perfect white apron in her kitchen with her appliances. They're telling everyone these people are low income, but they're the deserving poor.
And remember now, at this time, there is no black, technically, black female or woman equivalent, female, there's no black housewives, essentially. Like, that image has historically been disrupted, or that role has not really been offered to wives and mothers of that era that happened to be black. Remember the ordinances, most notably the one from Greenville in the 1940s that forced black women to go to work. Unemployed black women had to go to work. It was a city ordinance forcing them to go to work. So there are so many things historically that have happened to not make this dream of the American suburban dream happen for black families, right? So you look at all that, like TV Land, those old throwback shows that used to come on Nickelodeon, Nick at Night. You know, there weren't like a ton of. There definitely were black women homemakers. You got what I'm saying? But that vision of a black woman being like a Donna Reed, or you get what I'm saying, right? That didn't exist for us. That wasn't really a commonplace reality. Black women had to work, is what I'm trying to say, very, very sloppily. We had to work. In some instances, they mandated it through city ordinances in this state, probably in this city.
And deserving poor means you fit into this middle class image of respectability.
Cities within cities, scientifically planned and built, where a man and his family with a small income can live with
Yep,
comfort and
Jessica, you're right about the book.
The government thought about public housing as a step up for families. You're working hard, so you're able to save, and hopefully, you live in public housing 1 or 2 years, and you will then be able to move into your next step. The next step for whites was very clearly a house in the suburbs, which was supported through the federal government's insuring of home mortgages.
Listen, y'all.
When the government's deciding which loans it's going to insure and which loans it doesn't, it explicitly looks at race. Neighborhoods that are white will get the highest rating and are most insurable.
Color of law.
Integrated neighborhoods will be less desirable, and often the least desirable of all neighborhoods are going to be black neighborhoods.
Redlining.
And so the government literally takes maps of every city and it outlines black neighborhoods in red. So from the 1930s until the 1960s, 98% of all federally subsidized loans go to white Americans.
Federally subsidized loans. Talk about creating
that means that white
generational
Americans
wealth.
are getting into houses. They're able to build wealth. And black Americans are largely shut out of that market or having to finance through other means.
Hannah Nicole Jones. Nicole Hannah
The
Jones.
suburbs are wholly a creation, really, of the federal government. The government enables the movement out to the suburbs through the rise of new infrastructure. The interstate highway system, starting in 1956, is a huge boon that helps make suburban living possible. In many cities across the country, they put those highways there, in some cases to erase what were regarded as black slums, but always to try to keep white and black communities apart.
So white families who had been living in public housing, they now had the support of the federal government to buy a home. Whereas there was no next step for black public housing residents. There was no ladder.
So the public housing that originally had been intended primarily for white families became really the anchor of many urban neighborhoods that became all black.
Increasingly across the country, the waiting lists for public housing turned towards more lower income households. And so in Atlanta and in other cities, the housing authorities went with those who applied. So this was a major transformation to really see public housing become the
Y'all, I'm really helping y'all pregame for Candyman. I'm doing the absolute most. So again, before you see Candyman, this is the thing. I'm super grateful. So I got to sit with my homie Aaron, who's at Pratt, who was at the New School. She studies city planning, urban planning. She studies all this stuff. And when you think about the origins of how cities are planned and whatnot, it really just kind of it sticks with you and it never leaves you. And so when you go to see Candyman, I want you to keep that in mind especially when you view the first one, the first Candyman. Please keep what you're hearing here in mind. Like see the social listen to the social commentary that's being offered up, and think about the Cabrini Green, the Robert Taylor homes. Think about these images. This Atlanta Housing Authority is super important. I'm gonna let it play. I'm gonna let it finish. But I'm just letting y'all know this is the ultimate pregame for a horror film, right? I'm like getting y'all ready. It was good though.
Battlefield hospitals, the place where you cope with the poorest of the poor and not reward the best
Jessica.
off among them.
Evelyn, I see you.
The cumulative effect of all this is that you wind up with two entirely different relationships to this country.
Yes.
One is the lineage of the New Deal through post-World War II, through the reforms in the economy and, suburbanization and housing that has created, this ideal, in America. And the other is a population that has, by and large, been denied access to those things.
Yep. And that's the thing, somebody, who's that? Was that Nicole? Yep. Nicole, fucking bootstrap myth, right? You can't say pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you ain't even got no fucking boots. So if you're literally into, Jessica, you just made this latter point, men who fought alongside, men who went off the war, black men coming back and not being able to take advantage of the GI Bill, not being benefactors of the New Deal, any of that. So like those are the boots. the GI Bill, the New Deal, those are just a couple of the boots. The federally subsidized mortgages, that's another boot, right? You ain't giving us that boot. So this will arguably be my great and my grandfather's era. And they didn't have this. They literally didn't have this as an option. And so when you hear Mr. Punchable Face talk about, these people don't know how to take care of bullshit, shut up. And yes, being forced into a life of poverty, being forced into a cycle of poverty where generational wealth is just not a possibility. You're going to act and behave in a way, again, violence begets violence. It's not that we are violent people. Poverty doesn't make you violent. Poverty is violence, and how to navigate or survive that is going to do things to you, unintended things, it's just going to do things to you. And it's important to talk about it in that way. The ultimate pregame for a horror movie. I'm telling y'all. All right, so we covered a lot of ground so far. Let me see, a lot of ground, a lot. I think the redlining piece was important. To kind of understand. Let me make sure. Hold up. Yeah, important to understand when you see those maps and you hear the author of Code of Color of Law, and then you had Nicole Hannah-Jones talk about those maps. I think that's really important to keep in mind. I wanted to go back to some of the things you said, so public housing. What we just learned from that clip from the Kim Burns doc, is that we learned that public housing was not just a bad thing. The notion of public housing was not viewed as a negative. And no one really drove that home for me more than Miss Barbara Gathers. This is the City Paper. I believe they quote her in this piece. This was published 2019, July 10th. Right, and it's about the work we were trying to do, what we're trying to do at the Friends of Gadsden Creek. Pardon me. I want to get to Miss Barbara Gathers' contributions real quick, but let me read this. Too much yerba mate. All right. This is Gadsden Creek, or what is left of it. 75 years ago, 100 acres. Let me blow this up a little bit so y'all can kind of see it if you are watching and not listening. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Here we go. All right. This is Gadsden Creek, and they showed you a picture right here. So right here, y'all see West Edge. You see this parking lot's been here. This parking lot has been here, but here is like where the new Publix was being built, and that country club or whatever, the Harbor Club bullshit, right? And then here y'all see is what the remaining 4 acres of the Gadsden Creek. Y'all see the Ashley River up the top. I want y'all to see, you see how the creek is engineered to go right here. All right, cross over Lockwood. This is Lockwood right here. Crosses Lockwood, goes under. They engineered it to go under Lockwood. That's why you hit that bump whenever you go to Lockwood. If you were going to the old DMV, you hit that bump. That's the Gadsden Creek. You're running over the Gadsden Creek, right? And then it lets out over here. Brittlebank Park is over here, and it lets out into the Ashley River, right? It still has tidal functions. It still functions as, as it functions as much as well as it can after it's been dumped in, re-engineered, gentrified. The Gadsden Creek still works, y'all. You still can find oysters in the creek. You still can find, and that's a sign of life. Now, will I be eating the oysters that I get? No. Would I be even taking oysters out the creek? No. No. But it's a sign of life and vitality. So not only do we see oysters, there are herons there. We saw some sort of turtle there. I don't want to give the wrong name, but we saw turtles there. You see all signs of life over there. Raccoons is down there living it up, right? Yeah, so this is an amazing view right here. But this is the old parking garage that's been there for a minute, and then this is the new West Edge here. And then this is the creek, the remaining 4 acres of the creek that they're trying to dump and fill in right here. All right, so let me get down to this piece from 2019. This is Gadsden Creek, or what is left of it. 75 years ago, 100 acres of healthy marsh-flanked, 100 acres of healthy marsh flank the Ashley River next to the West Edge neighborhood, nestled just north of the Crosstown. Somebody said Crosstown earlier. Now 4 acres of wetlands remain. So it was 100. It was probably more than that, y'all. It was probably a lot more than that. I don't know. It was 100. Now it's 4. Now 4 acres of wetlands remain. Cranes Tower nearby in a daily frenzy of vertical construction. Part of the multi-phase West Edge development, a conglomerate of mixed-use buildings, including luxury apartments with rooftop pools, boutique salons, sushi restaurants. This is everything that the folks over there in the Gas and Green Housing Projects asked for. They said they wanted sushi. They said they wanted a rooftop pool. They said they wanted a boutique salon. They wanted a spa. They said all that, y'all. Of course, I'm being very sarcastic if you can't read it. All right. Anyway, luxury apartments, rooftop pools, boutique salons, sushi restaurants, office space. And this is before like these spaces were determined. So it says facilities yet to be determined. Developers seek to fill what remains of the Asden Creek, arguing that the creek is too polluted. Bullshit. Shem Creek is way worse. And you can always revitalize the creek. Cut it out, knock it off, pipe down. All right. Too polluted to save. That was their first. Now they're saying other shit. Now I just want you to know that they changed it a little bit. Now it's some other shit. Now the residents wanted this. That's the new one. But the citizens of the group Friends of Gaston Creek calls bullshit. Only in the city paper. Passions run high, as they should, with the fate of the wetlands and habitat at stake. So I want to get down again to Miss Barbara Gathers. I want to reiterate this for those who don't know the work we do and the history that we leverage we leverage the public archive. Shout out to Cyrus Buffum. For those who don't know what we do, this is what we do. So we found all this history, pieced this together. Cyrus started piecing this together. So it says from 1930s through the 1970s, city seized parts of the green. So back the green is what we call it. Black folk call it back the green, right? So from 1930s to the 1970s, city seized parts of the green. First, no one calls it that. First of a large swath of privately owned homes, then of its waterfront. In the late 1930s, using federal funds for the creation of public housing, Mayor Bernard Maybank announced what was termed a slum clearance project. So when you hear urban renewal, slum clearance, placemaking even, those are all like euphemisms or terms that are usually associated with gentrification and displacement of poor and black people. Slum clearance these were not slums, y'all. These were not slums at all. A tornado came through, busted up some homes. They were trying to rebuild them. Outside of that, there were no slums. But anyway, Mayor Maybank came in there and was like, yo, we about to clear the slums. All right. Let me get to the point I want to see. Okay, was it a slum? No, not according to his residents, who wrote a letter, and this is the letter that Cyrus found in the city archive over there in the Gilliard Center, right? Who wrote a letter in 1940 imploring the mayor, Henry Lockwood at the time, so Henry Lockwood was the mayor then, not to seize their property, 80% of which houses were said to be in good repair. Most of the houses weren't even, you know how a tornado move, y'all. A tornado don't move like a hurricane, right? A tornado zigzags, so all the homes weren't demolished. It was just like a few homes, and they were trying to rebuild. They were pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, raising money to repair the homes, right? But Mayor Locke was like, nah, we're going to take your shit. We're going to take your shit. We're going to put a dump over there too. So we're going to kill you one or two ways. We're going to kill you by putting you in poverty, or we're going to kill you with this environmental racism. You know what I mean? And this was against the law. And they knew. They just was like, we good. All right, I want to get to, it's not that complicated. I wanted to get to Miss Barbara Gather's comments here. Let me see. Who speaks for the creek? It took a lot from our work. I'll tell you that. It took a lot from our research. Let me just go to the article from we know that the Charleston Chronicle has since shut down recently, right? And so we can't find this. I'll use my library card and see if it's archived at the library within the the database. But I want to lift up Miss Barbara Gathers right here, still with us, still kicking, still doing her thing. She wrote this book. Y'all talking about getting Color of Law. Pick up this book too. You all want to pick up Color of Law? Pick up this book too, From Back to Green, Stories from the Heart. So she's a resident. She was raised in Back to Green, Miss Barbara Gathers. She doesn't live there now, but she still was a big contributor to our work early on. She toured the creek when Congressman Cunningham, or then Congressman Cunningham, came to just get a photo op and didn't do shit. But she walked with us on that day. We're really proud to have her with us. I wanted to pull up another download. Where is it at? Here it is. So while she was working more closely with us, I don't even have a date on it because the Chronicle has like broken all the links to all the pieces that used to be available. But she wrote this, and this was featured in the Charleston Chronicle. History repeats itself, and she talks about, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is she talks about living in public housing was not negative. It was not viewed as negative. She did not feel any type of bias or stigma, having been someone who was born and raised in Gadsden Green. Let me just read a little bit of what she offered. I'm gonna blow it up as big as I can. Hold on. Right here. All right, history repeats itself. Let me get it bigger. History repeats itself. Is the story? I guess it's all cut off. Oh man, I don't know if I can read it. Is the story? Excuse me. What is a theory? Excuse me. History repeats itself is a theory that can be applied to what is happening today regarding the West Edge developers and its quest to fill in the Gadsden Creek. As I see it, these are her words. As I see it, a quest to later redevelop the entire Back to Green community. It's called gentrification. She puts that in big bold letters. I want to get to the part she mentions Cyrus right off rip. I love her. She mentions, shout out Cyrus, because Cyrus hunted her down. When he found that book, he was like, wait, there's somebody who could talk about this. But in this article, she talks about, let me see, I grew up, here it is right here. I grew up knowing the residents of Gadsden Green area. So this is the housing project, y'all. I grew up knowing that the residents of the Gadsden Green area were a pretty self-sufficient group of people, i.e. homeowners, school teachers, and entrepreneurs. I had no idea how the Gadsden Green public housing came about until I read the old newspaper articles, which they shared. I'm sure Cyrus shared it with her, because we went to the Park Cafe, y'all, and we just like had this folder, and Cyrus, there was just one conversation of many, but we went to the Park Cafe and we were like, yo, you see this? Miss Gather, did you know this? Did you know that? It was really dope. It was really fun. And she was so receptive and patient with us, so accommodating, you know? So she said she had she lived it, but she had no, like, you know, understanding as to like what was going on. You know, of course we benefit from this like 2020 vision, right? This retrospect. And we can kind of see the whole picture now because we've got, you know, the advantage of just, you know, hindsight, I guess. All right. So she read the old newspaper articles, which they shared with me. Former mayor seized the property of his residents, who, by the way, are African-American homeowners. They were African-American homeowners, in order to create space for public housing. In protest, a group of 39 residents, all wrote a letter, but, you know, pretty much essentially pleading. So she talks about that. She talks about a sense of pride, being from Back to Green. It wasn't negative to be in public housing. She was able to find a way through. And she's not the only one that found a way through. I know tons of people who have a relationship or who had part of their younger years they spent in Back to Green and so on and so forth. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Bye. Work calls. All right. Bye, D. Yeah. Let me see what y'all were writing over here. The Reedy River is extremely polluted and still extremely polluted. Justin, you said this. The Reedy River, I don't know where that's at. I guess that's Greenville. Reedy River is extremely polluted still from mills that haven't been operating for decades. Greenville still built downtown around it. Of course, that iconic river in Chicago. What is this? Is it the Chicago River, the one that goes downtown, where if you watch the movie The Fugitive, for like the billionth time, like I did. That the river that they always dye green around St. Patty's Day, that shit is very toxic. I learned that when I was doing the podcast interviews with advocates from around the country. You know, they come up with reasons. Oh, it's too polluted. Shem Creek is right there, enjoying so much. People coming and going. Get out of here. Shem Creek and there's some areas of James Island that are way worse than the Gadsden Creek. Like my mom even told me something on my way to the movie theater yesterday. She said that I think recently they found fecal matter in some of the water on James Island. I don't know where. She wasn't really specific, but I know that Cyrus told me about some other type of water quality issue on James Island. My point is this: where you see pockets of Black people, they tend to come up with reasons, concoct reasons and fiction to not support or to displace Black people. Chicago River, yeah. I closed it out. I did want to. Oh, I'm not going to bring it up. I'll bring it up later. But I want to, again, like I promised, I want to end with Courtney's post again. So you all learned a little bit. Hopefully you learned something new. That's the whole point. I know y'all learned something new. Everybody ain't no know-it-all shit. Because if I'm learning something new every day. I learned something new this morning. By reading I read like 3 articles in rapid speed. But again, it's not enough to just know things. Some of the things I mentioned yesterday with my frustration, and I'm not gonna get into it, with my former employer. Shout out to y'all who texted and reached out afterwards. But some of the frustration is like I'm just tired of white people watching. And I'm tired of white people just stroking checks. Trying to find a way to engage with this issue this mutual aid issue that Courtney is leading. She has not stopped advocating for the folks over at Joseph Floyd Manor. Her mutual aid effort is just, to me, phenomenal. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it. I've tried to help in my little way, and this is another little way of me helping again. But please make sure you go visit Courtney's page, her on Instagram, learn more how you can help her efforts. And I will say this, don't just think monetary support. Don't just think donation, even though I'm sure that's what she wants. There's a financial goal attached to this post. But don't just think that, because I think that lets a lot of people off the hook. And as y'all, thank you for listening to me talk about my recent firing and whatnot. But part of that conversation wasn't just me just trying to tell y'all, you know, the shitty things that happened to me. Is also, I am going to use it as a teachable moment, the inaction of folks that could have done more, right? And so sometimes it's not just about stroking a check. It's not just about donating money, because I think for some people who are privileged enough to have those resources, it kind of lets them off the hook, right? It's almost like DEI, REI training. Oh, you do the thing and you feel absolved from any type of other responsibility. Find a way to really engage with this work that she's doing, maybe even to really engage with the people there, in a non-extractive, non-patriotic. There's another white girl. I don't know her, so I ain't gonna come at her personally, but there's a white girl out here doing some work over there. I don't like what I'm seeing though. If y'all know who she is, let me know. I don't like what I'm seeing though. White savior complex on another level. But if I got that wrong, let me know. I don't think so though. Try to engage with Courtney, because Courtney I don't think Courtney organizes with that young lady either. Try to engage with her. Try to engage with the community in a thoughtful and meaningful way. White people don't just watch, you know. And shout out to those who do things, you know, all that. I'm not taking notes, right? Dangerous exploit. Oh, you still there, Courtney? Dangerous exploitation. Yep. But also too, y'all, I really do hope you do go enjoy Candyman. Okay, it is a horror. The first one, 1992, is a horror film. I can't get around it. I think the second one is a little bit more easier to watch. But like I said, I'm in the theater yesterday. I'm in the Terrace Theater. They go on there's several parts in the movies where there's like really in your face commentary about gentrification being said. And I yell out, when they say Whole Foods, I yell Publix, thinking of Gadsden Green, and the lady behind me yells West Edge. to me, I want to see that or hear that more often. I want us to be able to know when we see violence and we see other instances of like parallels or other things that mirror what's going on here in Charleston. It's time for us to disrupt that marketing campaign that the CVB with this Explore Charleston and other bullshit. It's time to really disrupt that image and that PR campaign, that billion with a B dollar campaign, and really tell people what it's really like to live in Charleston. Shit, what it's really like to be displaced from Charleston. A lot of people who watch me are watching me from another city because they can't live in Charleston, or they've left their jobs because they couldn't make it work in Charleston. It's things that in the last 6 months, I thought about, maybe do I have to relocate? I'm not going nowhere, but you have to think about those things. And then, of course, when I was fired abruptly without reason or cause by a bullshit ass organization that's really directly tied to TCF, I should have known. I had to think about that too. Like, how do I sustain myself here in Charleston? And it's not easy. And so, I think it's time for us to start telling our stories about displacement, whether you're white, whether you're a business owner, whether you're single like me, whether you know what I mean? Just it's time for us to start talking about it, because not enough of us are doing that. And so that's what I would leave you with, okay? Yeah, and Courtney, if you're still listening, Nicole is a real one. Everybody in this chat is a real one. Everybody, but Nicole is a real one. Nicole is a soldier. Nicole and Anna Marks. Anna Marks, are you still there? A real one. Shit. Anna Marks, what you find on me? Anna Marks, research me. Tell me what you find. Do Oppo research on me. You ain't gonna find no jail record. I don't know if you could find I don't know. Let me not give the public everything. No, you're not gonna find no jail record. You're not gonna find nothing crazy. Maybe unflattering. Anyway, Courtney, you got some real ones here. So thank you so much for watching, y'all. Thank you for the support. Yesterday was crazy. The hype train was crazy. I super appreciate it. More on the t-shirts coming. Hit me up on Instagram. That's the best way for me to manage everything. And I've been taking notes and all that. Go see Candyman. See the first one. Wait, 70 Acres. The Robert Taylor Green on YouTube. Smooth Jazz Dallas. 70 Acres, Smooth Jazz Dallas. Then see 1992, revisit it or watch it for the first time, and then watch the remake. That's your homework. You got to do it by the end of the week. Pick up Color of Law, but as important, support Miss Barbara Gathers. Buy her book. That book is old, but buy that book, Back to Green by Barbara Gathers. I think you really enjoy that. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Okay, love y'all, appreciate y'all. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for buying these t-shirts. More coming soon. More things, not just t-shirts and shit. More things coming soon. My friend told me to become a full-time live streamer. I'm scared shitless, but you know what? Might be happy. You might be on a lunch break at 2:00 and like, oh, Mika's still on. Oh man, I don't know yet. All right, take care, y'all. I'll see you tomorrow. Support Courtney. Bye.